We are starting a new chapter, new unit about unit circle and trig, and we're going to start with right triangle trig. And I know that this is something that you guys have seen before. You've seen it in geometry, and you've also seen it in algebra 2. But when you saw it then, a lot of what you saw was just sine, cosine, and tangent. And we are going to talk about 6 different trigonometric functions. So there's going to be more than just sine, cosine, and tangent. To start, we're going to talk about naming sides and angles. So angles are always capital letters. And the sides are always the lowercase letters that are opposite of the side that they are on, opposite the angle. So what I mean by that is, like, the hypotenuse here will be side little b, over here will be side little a, and then this will be side little c. Okay. And so it's important that, like, if I say triangle ABC, you know that I'm talking about the angles or the sides or whatever it is. And then there's this symbol here, it's theta. Okay, not feta like the cheese. And it usually stands for an angle. It's a Greek letter that stands for an angle. So I'm going to put theta here. And we're going to talk about opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. So angle A is what I'm talking about. And I want to know, for example, B is always going to be the hypotenuse. Okay, so the one across from the right angle, I've already highlighted it in purple, and I'll do it again in pink. The one across from the right angle is always your hypotenuse. Now, the other 2 sides are adjacent and opposite. So the one that's farthest away is opposite. I'm writing the wrong word. Opposite. And the one that's closest is adjacent. Remember, adjacent means that they're touching. So if you put your hand right on angle A, you'd be touching the hypotenuse, but you'd also be touching the side C. And so that's your adjacent side. And then another reminder about SOHCAHTOA. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. And since we are in pre-calc now, we don't say sin and cos. We are going to say sine and cosine. So let's make sure we're using the right words now that we are in pre-calc. So here's my example for you. First, we are going to find the sine, cosine, and tangent for B. So something when we're getting started is to maybe like circle the side or the angle that we're looking for and then labeling them. So this one is going to be the hypotenuse, because it is farthest away from the right angle, across from the right angle. Well, that's farthest away from me is this one. This is opposite, and this side up here will be my adjacent. So labeling them, especially when you're getting started, is a great idea. We cannot find all of our trig functions, though, until we find that final side. So hopefully you remember Pythagorean theorem is what we're going to use to find the third side of a right triangle. And the hypotenuse is always the side C. So 33 squared equals A squared plus B squared. And I'm going to replace either A or B, and it doesn't matter which one, with that. Okay, and on I'm going to just use my phone calculator. 33 squared is this. And 18 squared. Then I would subtract 324. 1089 minus 324. B squared is 765. Now to get what B equals, I need to take the square root. So I do not want decimals. Okay, so I'm going to write that over here in yellow. No decimals. Okay. So how can you write it? You can leave it like this, or hopefully you remember from both geometry and algebra 2 how to reduce these. And I think that the biggest perfect square that goes in here is 9, which seems pretty small, but it is 9 times 85. If you don't do this step, I'm not going to mark it wrong. I do think it's good practice. So I'm going to use it, but our answer keys might be different based on whether or not you used this form. But this is my answer for my side up here. It's going to be 3 square roots of 85. That's how long it is. So my sine, cosine, and tangent. Remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and I almost always write SOHCAHTOA on everything because I need help remembering it. So sine of B is opposite, which I labeled as 18 over hypotenuse, which is 13. You don't have to reduce it. You don't have to write it as a decimal. You just need to leave it as is. So cosine of B is 3 square roots of 85 over 33. And then tangent of B is 18 over 3 square roots of 85. Now, technically, you would have to rationalize the denominator, but we're not going to do that right now. If that is something you want to do, go ahead and go for it. Here's our last example where we are going to talk about those other reciprocal ratios. So the reciprocal ratios are cosecant, secant, and cotangent. And I always get confused because I think that cosine should go with cosecant, but it's exactly the opposite. So 1 over sine of theta is the same as cosecant of theta. And secant is 1 over cosine of theta. And cotangent's the easy one. That's 1 over the 1 over the tangent of theta. And then I wrote a question here, like if cosine is 3/4, what would secant be? So secant of theta would then be 1 over 3/4, but we don't like to write it like this. It is the reciprocal, so you can just flip it upside down. So what you really need to do is find sine, cosine, and tangent, and then flip them all upside down to make cosecant, secant, and cotangent. I'm going to kind of show my work here. I'm going to stop talking. So if you hear no noise, that's normal. I don't think I can pause this. Nope, I can't just pause it. So I'm going to show my work, and you should be doing the work as well, and you can pause it and come back to see if I have the same answer as you. But I'm going to go ahead and do my work now. Square plus Okay, so I found my sine, cosine, and tangent. Now to find the other three, I'm going to move this out of the way actually. Find the other three, you literally just flip them upside down. So, oops, I don't think I gave you. Okay, so we do cosecant like this. Secant is this. Cotangent is this. So the cosecant would be the square root of 149 over 7. The secant of P is what I should be putting instead of theta would be the square root of 149 over 10. And the cotangent of P is going to be 10 over 7. Okay, so that is it for your notes today.